Hey, it's Vanessa from CraftyGemini.com, and today's lesson we're going to cover Longarm Machine Quilting. This is my Voyager 17 and his name is Janoris. His name is Janoris because that's my husband's favorite college football player, and apparently the Florida Gators wouldn't have been able to win last year's championship without him. So the quilt that we'll be quilting on today is this little baby quilt. It's for a little girl. It measures 36 inches by 36 inches, so it's just 1 yard square. As you can see, the pattern is pretty simple. These big center blocks in each one of these blocks finished 8 inches square, and then the strips are they start off being cut 2.5 inches wide, and then let me see if I can show you here a little better. The short strips measure 8.5 inches when they're cut, so they finish 8 inches, so they measure exactly the length of the square. And then the longer ones that you can see there start off being cut 12.5 inches, and they finish 12 inches. So as you can see, you see a long strip here, a long strip here. Then I alternate it, so the next one has a short strip and a short strip. And in this one, the long strips are on the sides. So that's how I alternate it to get this overall pattern. It's a very simple quilt to do, and it would be a great pattern for a beginner to start with. So this is the backing fabric that I've chosen for my quilt, and the first thing to do before loading it on the actual quilting frame is to press it. So I'll just, like I said in my previous videos, I like to press on the back side of the fabric. So I'll just hit it with some starch and press it. Remember, just up and down motion, no swiping. I like to press my fabric to get out all those creases. It's going to be stretched already on the frame in between two rollers, but I like to make sure that I won't have any puckering on my backing, especially since this is going to be underneath my quilt and I won't be able to see it from the top. Before I actually load my backing onto my quilting frame, I want to take my backing fabric and measure it in half. Find the halfway mark. I like to find a little crease like that with my hand, or you can also mark it with a disappearing ink marker. There's my halfway mark. So after I have that mark, I can start loading this end onto my quilting frame. So now with my backing fabric with pretty side facing down, I'll keep my finger on this halfway mark and line it up with the halfway mark on my leaders. Right there. And insert a pin to hold that in place. Okay? Now I'll start pinning this edge all along this side of my leader. What I do is I skip, I'll show you right now. I'll skip like that much space, about 3 inches. I'll go and then I'll come back and refill in these spaces with more pins. Okay, but I just do this to hold it down now in the meantime. So I'll put another one in about here. You want to make sure that you have these very well pinned up here so that your fabric doesn't move while you're quilting, since it's going to be spread out in between these two rollers and it's going to be pretty taut. When you get to the corner, make sure that you insert your pin so that the tipmost point of this edge here is completely held down onto the leader. You do not want to have any of these corners flipping up, okay? Right there. Just like that. And now you see how these two are very close. I'll go back, I'll insert another pin here, 1 or 2 here, and just do that. Now you saw I started in the center and went off to the left. After I finish inserting my pins along this side, I'll go back and pin the pins to the opposite side towards the right. So don't start on one end and go all the way. Instead, you want to start in the center, out to the left, and then start again from the center, out back to the right. You can see I've done the complete left side from the center mark. Now I'll go on to the right side. This helps keep your fabric centered and even. If I were to start on one end and go all the way that way, I can pretty much guarantee that your fabric will be skewed in that direction. So it's good to start in the center and go out. And now I'll continue doing this until I fill up the last side that I have left here. Making sure you've pinned the backing fabric up against one edge of your leader with the ugly side up. Now I can just loosen this out. You see it's kept in place there with all those pins. And I'm going to roll this leader up and continue to roll it all the way up. Now, on the other end of my backing fabric, I've also marked the halfway mark, which I'm going to line up with this leader now, and this halfway mark here. And as you can see, I'm lining it up towards the inside of the leader, not on the outside. Have it inside. Line those edges up. Make sure to match those halfway marks. That's what guarantees that your fabric is properly centered. And I'll do the same thing. Put a pin in place. And then continue to do the exact same thing you did on top. I'll first start off filling out my pins to the left side of this one, across this way. Then I'll come back and start from the center out to the right. The same thing we did to the top edge of our backing fabric, we've also done with the bottom edge. Again, make sure the ugly side is up and you're pinning on the back side of the leader. Then marking the halfway mark, I pin to the left from the center and then to the right from the center. Now I'm going to roll or unroll my rollers to get it prepped to put the batting and the top of the quilt. So I'll roll this, and as you can see, you might get a few wrinkles here and there. Smooth them out with your hands. And I want to do this until I get to the top edge where I'm ready to load the top part of my quilt and my batting. Okay. Now I'll tighten this one. And I have this top part. You see there's no puckering, no wrinkles. Now I'm ready to put my batting and then the quilt top. Now I'm ready to put my batting. The quilt basting spray that I'll be using here only works well on cotton batting, and since I'm using this about 4-ounce weight polyester batting, I find that if I spray the cotton fabric and then lay the batting, it actually does hold it pretty well. So I'll just spray this, lay my batting up top, and smooth it out. I also like to put my hands underneath and come from the center and smooth out to make sure that that adhesive is grabbing both of my layers. Do the same thing on the other side. And this also ensures no puckering, especially since I already pinned the backing fabric pretty taut. I know that I won't have any puckering. And this should hold there pretty nicely. Now I'm ready to do the same thing and place my quilt top on here. Now we want to take our quilt top, and you can eyeball it, kind of place it in the center there. Make sure that you have, as you can see, I cut the backing and the batting about 3 to 4 inches bigger than my quilt top on both sides. Okay, that's very important. The last thing you want to do is be quilting and then realize that you don't have enough batting or enough backing to cover your quilt. You want to make sure you have plenty. So I'll place it a few inches from the top down here to make sure I have both backing and batting underneath it. Put it kind of where I want it. Then I'll flip it back and again spray the quilt top. Lay it on my sandwich here and go from the center out. I don't pull too hard when I do these swipes. I don't want to stretch the fabric, but I do want to make sure that the adhesive is holding all 3 layers of my quilt sandwich together. Okay? And what I tend to do is I'll start quilting this part, and then I'll go back, and as I advance the quilt, I'll spray the rest of it down. But I don't need to spray the entire piece now. So now we're ready to baste it down with the actual quilting machine, and then we're ready to start stitching. One of the tips that I recommend you do when you're using a frame like this to machine quilt, before trying out the stitches of your machine and running into the problem of having some tension issues or having messed up stitches, I like to put a strip of fabric on this excess that we have left over here. And so before I stitch on the actual quilt, I'll stitch on here to test out my stitches and make sure that they're exactly how I want them to be before I actually start putting them on my quilt top.